It's a very different and public kind of family, so people want to know.
Sometimes you say they're just a family.
They are my family.
Zara Tindall never speaks on royal drama. But when she finally did, it wasn't at a palace, it was at a sports event. And the words she spoke sent royal watchers into a frenzy. It was supposed to be an ordinary night celebrating athletes in Mayfair, one of London's most elite districts. The evening was filled with champagne toasts and polite applause. But no one expected a royal revelation to drop amid the accolades. Zara Tindall, Olympic silver medalist and granddaughter of Queen Elizabeth, Sacrée Toyut, took the stage to speak about performance, resilience, and the spirit of competition. Yet within moments, the conversation turned, and so did history. She looked composed, casual, even cheerful. And then came the line. Just one sentence, delivered without drama. It is very hard to see from the outside, but 100% it is a family that is still going through the same struggles other people do. The room barely blinked, but across the world, the quote exploded. Zara hadn't named names. She didn't need to. The royal family's ongoing Cold War with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had dominated headlines for years. And now, for the first time, someone who wasn't obligated to speak, a royal with no title, no duty, no PR team, had cracked the wall of silence. It was subtle, it was personal, and it was powerful. Zara's position is unlike anyone else in the EU royal fold. She's never been a working royal. She doesn't receive public money. And yet, she's been at every meaningful family gathering, from Trooping the Color to the funerals of her grandparents. She's an insider, raised in the palace. But she's also been allowed to live her life away from the rigid expectations that bind her cousins. So when she speaks, it isn't filtered through protocol or obligation. It's real. That's what made this moment so electrifying. She wasn't reading a script. She wasn't standing beside a royal crest. She was speaking her truth at a sports event, of all places. And that made it even more authentic. The world heard a woman talking about family, not royalty. And that distinction struck a nerve. Zara's voice, long kept out of controversy, had entered the conversation. And it came at a time when the monarchy was standing on a razor's edge.
Has just broken
For
her silence.
Years,
and
the
what
royal
she said
family's
is sending
silence had become
shockwaves
its
through the
shield.
House of Windsor.
But now, one of their own had chosen to speak, not to defend, not to attack,
The monarchy.
but to acknowledge.
But
A
recently,
quiet truth
she made some
had been
rare
let
and
loose.
unexpected
And
comments
the fact that it came from someone with no formal role, no
that
agenda,
about royal
made
matters.
it all the more
In
disruptive.
fact, she's known
It wasn't a press release. It was a ripple that became a
for
wave.
significant
But
interest
to
behind
understand
palace
the full
doors.
weight of Zara's words,
The event
we
wasn't
must first revisit the Feud
internal
that shattered
dynamics.
the royal family from within.
She acknowledged that the
When
royals
Harry and Meghan walked away in 2020, they didn't just step back.
meant to be
They
about the
detonated
royals at
royal
all.
family's deepest
It was about
secrets.
celebrating elite
The
athletes
announcement came with
and
royal
recognizing
politeness,
achievement.
but thunderous implications. In a matter of hours,
But
Buckingham
100%,
Palace was in
it is a
crisis mode.
family that is still
Harry,
going through
born
the
into
same
royalty,
struggles other people
and
do.
Meghan, embraced with cautious optimism, had just
But
flipped
unlike
the
her cousins
institution on
William
its
and
head.
Harry,
They were no longer senior royals. But what followed wasn't a graceful retreat. It was a
Princess
revelation
Anne
of
and
truths
granddaughter
long
of
buried beneath the palace floors.
an
What began as
insider
a quest for
and, in
privacy
some ways,
quickly
an
turned
observer.
into an international exposé. The interviews came fast, and the wounds were still fresh. Then,
The royal
in
family
March
has been
2021,
navigating a very
the Oprah
public and
interview
often
hit
painful
like a
rift.
bombshell. Viewers across the globe watched in disbelief as Harry
That's
and Meghan
part of the
peeled
reason why
back
her
the
recent
royal curtain.
comments stood out.
Allegations of racism.
She's not someone who's required
descriptions
to
of
speak on
suffocating
behalf of the
isolation.
monarch.
Meghan's raw admission of suicidal thoughts. The world gasped not just at the claims
Involving
but
Prince
at the
Harry and his
staggering
wife.
silence that followed. Harry said he felt trapped. Meghan said she was denied help.
They've shared their side of the
Together,
story.
they spoke
Topics
of an
like
institution
what's been
more
noticeably
concerned with
absent
image
during this
than with
time.
individuals. And in doing so, they challenged everything the monarchy.
This approach
had built
has
its
made Zara's
reputation on.
comments all the more
Centuries of
intriguing.
carefully maintained dignity
She didn't name
and
names or
secrecy
take a side.
were now under siege, not from outside forces, but from within the bloodline. And yet,
Those close to
not
the
a
royals
word in
have pointed
response.
out that Zara has
No
always been
counter-interview.
someone who avoids
No televised denial. Just a single line from Buckingham Palace. Recollections may vary. It was a phrase so sterile, so intentionally vague, that it only fueled more speculation. The royal family, bound by the ancient motto, never complain, never explain, stuck to its tradition. But in the modern world of digital headlines and emotional transparency, silence doesn't soothe. It screams. Prince William walked through press crowds insisting, "We are very much not a racist family." But it wasn't enough. The world had already decided whose side it believed. And in the vacuum of official explanation, the media filled the space with noise. Some outlets championed Harry and Meghan as truth-tellers. Others branded them as traitors. The British tabloids turned Meghan into a lightning rod. In America, the couple became symbols of liberation from outdated hierarchy. The divide wasn't just within the palace, it split across oceans. Behind palace gates, trust fractured. Harry's once close bond with William reportedly crumbled. Charles, the heir who had waited a lifetime to become king, now had to navigate not only the crown, but the implosion of his family. And still, Anne, William, Charles, they all kept their silence. Every move was calculated. Every photo, every gesture, scrutinized for clues of inner turmoil. And in all this noise, one royal remained noticeably absent from commentary. Zara Tindall. No interviews, no passive-aggressive press releases. Just silence. As the monarchy spiraled through its most turbulent modern chapter, she stayed in the shadows, watching, perhaps waiting. In this storm of silence and headlines, Zara stayed out of sight. Until now. She was born royal, but not titled. Inside the palace, yet always on the sidelines. From the moment Zara Tindall entered the world, her life was destined to be different from her cousins. The daughter of Princess Anne, the only daughter of Queen Elizabeth II, Zara was surrounded by royalty, but she was never burdened by it. That was no accident. Princess Anne made a bold choice. Her children would not hold royal titles. No, her Royal Highness. No dukedom, no expectations to wave from balconies or issue public statements. It was a quiet rebellion against the very system that had defined their family for centuries. And it worked. Zara grew up with horses instead of headlines, sports instead of scandal. While William and Harry learned to walk with cameras flashing in their faces, Zara rode beneath the radar. But that didn't make her invisible. She's always been present, just never at the center. Trooping the color, royal weddings, jubilee celebrations, funerals, Zara is there. Not in the spotlight, but never absent. She understands the choreography of the crown because she's danced around it her entire life. She shares blood with the throne, yet walks freely among the people. That paradox makes her uniquely powerful. She belongs to both worlds and answers to neither. Her career, too, reflects that independence. While others were groomed for statecraft, Zara carved out a space of her own in the grueling world of equestrian sports. She didn't ride on name alone, she earned her place. An Olympics silver medalist, a champion in her own right. Her achievements are not ceremonial, they're hard-fought and personal. And that sense of individuality, that refusal to be defined by her last name, has made her a quiet force within the royal family. It also means she's trusted. Zara doesn't leak to the press. She doesn't feed the tabloids. She doesn't pose for exclusives or pen memoirs. Her silence has always been her strength. When family matters explode across headlines, Zara disappears into the background, often riding through storms while others stand exposed. Yet, she remains deeply embedded. Her bond with Princess Anne is unbreakable. She and her husband, former rugby star Mike Tindall, have built a life that's both public and private, a rare balance in the royal world. But perhaps most importantly, Zara is a bridge between duty-bound royals and estranged cousins, between centuries-old tradition and modern pressures, between silence and understanding. She knows the protocols, but isn't shackled by them. She sees the fractures, but doesn't pick sides. She listens more than she speaks, and when she does speak, people lean in. She doesn't wield her voice often, but when she finally did, it pierced through years of silence, which is why her brief, heartfelt words carried so much weight, especially during this moment of fragile unity. They were once inseparable brothers. Now, even in death and disease, they barely exchange words. Harry and William, the golden duo of a modern monarchy, shared more than just blood. They were comrades in grief after Diana's death, confidants in chaos, and symbols of a new royal age. But today, they are shadows of that bond. What began as subtle differences has calcified into a silence that speaks volumes. The distance between them is no longer metaphorical, it's emotional, physical, and painfully visible. When Prince Philip passed away in 2021, the world watched closely. Not just for the ceremony, but for the body language. Two brothers, standing steps apart, exchanging nothing more than glances. And if Queen Elizabeth's funeral was meant to heal, it didn't. The photos may have shown unity, but the tension beneath the black coats was unmistakable. Then came the revelation that shook the monarchy's very core: King Charles's cancer. Diagnosis. For a brief moment, hope flickered. Could illness bring them back together? Could tragedy mend what betrayal had broken? But what followed was not reconciliation. It was a 45-minute visit. That's all. Harry flew across continents for a meeting with his father that barely lasted an hour. No photos, no dinner, no second chances. If a royal health crisis couldn't thaw the ice, what could? The truth is, the damage runs deeper than disagreements. It's about trust, and that trust has been shattered. William, known for his controlled composure, is reportedly furious, not just hurt by Harry's departure, but livid at how private matters became public spectacles. The Netflix series, the memoir, the endless interviews. And while Harry shared his truth with raw honesty, William has held the line. He sees his role not just as a brother, but as a future king. And with that role comes an unspoken rule: protect the crown at all costs. But that crown, it seems, is now balancing on a knife's edge. There are whispers in the palace halls, conversations about stripping titles. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex, once a modern power couple representing the royal future, may soon become royals in name only. Not because they left, but because they spoke after leaving. Because they didn't just walk away, they opened the door and let the world see inside. And for William, that's unforgivable. This isn't just a family feud, it's a fracture that cuts to the heart of monarchy itself. What is loyalty? What is duty? And when do personal boundaries become public betrayals? Amid all of this, the world kept watching for signs, gestures, appearances, absences, and one figure began to stand out not for what she said, but for where she wasn't. In this deepening divide, Zara's absence at major events didn't go unnoticed, and neither did her reappearance. When Zara skipped VE Day and the Royal Garden party, it wasn't just a scheduling conflict, it was a statement. These weren't ordinary engagements. These were two of the most high-profile events on the royal calendar, deeply symbolic, rich in tradition, and heavily watched by the public and press alike. For years, Zara Tindall had been a consistent presence at such occasions. She wasn't required to attend. She didn't carry a title, nor was she bound by any formal duty. But she showed up reliably, respectfully, and always representing her family with quiet grace. That's why her absence this time was deafening. In a family where silence often says more than speeches, her decision not to appear rang louder than words. Almost immediately, royal watchers began asking questions. Was it illness? A scheduling issue? Or was something deeper unfolding beneath the surface? The timing couldn't have been more conspicuous. The royal family was already under pressure, fractured by tension, hollowed by public criticism, and bruised by ongoing rifts. And just as the monarchy needed a united front, one of its most respected, least controversial figures quietly stepped away. The speculation swirled. Was Zara pulling back to avoid being caught in the middle of the Charles-Harry feud? Or was she sending a message, a subtle gesture of support for her cousin, without making headlines? Unlike working royals, Zara has the freedom to disappear without explanation. But that freedom also gives her choices more meaning. Every absence becomes a question mark, every silence a potential stance. And for a royal who had always been present during key moments, this sudden withdrawal was interpreted as anything but random. Her no-shows weren't acts of defiance, but they weren't neutral either. They signaled a woman carefully navigating stormy waters. Zara wasn't taking sides, but she wasn't pretending everything was fine either. Perhaps it was self-protection. Perhaps it was compassion. Or perhaps it was both. In a family famed for choreographed appearances and rehearsed unity, Zara's absence felt unfiltered, an authentic pause amid the performance. Even without speaking, she was sending a message. She wasn't rebelling, but she was resisting something. The noise, the tension, the demand to conform to an increasingly fragile image. And when she finally did reappear, she didn't bring a royal script. She brought a sentence, a carefully chosen line that turned speculation into confirmation. Then came the Mayfair moment, where silence gave way to carefully chosen words. It is very hard to see from the outside. It wasn't what she said, it was what she implied. In a single breath, Zara Tindall cracked the royal illusion. For decades, the monarchy has stood behind closed doors, draped in protocol and silence. But that one sentence? It sliced through centuries of ceremonial armor. And it didn't need to name names or offer details because everyone listening already knew the context. This wasn't about misunderstanding. It was about unspoken truths, finally surfacing from behind palace walls. The public immediately latched onto her words, not because they were dramatic, but because they were unmistakably human. In a family where statements are scrubbed, approved, and sealed in velvet diplomacy, Zara's message came raw and unrehearsed. She wasn't reading from a royal script. She wasn't defending anyone. She wasn't attacking either. She was just honest. And in today's climate, that kind of candor carries a force the monarchy has rarely embraced. Observers were quick to interpret the comment as confirmation. The royal family is fractured, not in a way that screams tabloid scandal, but in a way that mirrors every other family under pressure. Struggles, tension, unspoken resentment. Zara didn't deny it. She didn't sugarcoat it. She quietly acknowledged what everyone had suspected, that behind the crowns and curated smiles, there's conflict real, unresolved, and painfully familiar. But then came another line, just as quietly delivered, but equally loaded. We are still supportive of each other. That phrase sent ripples through royal commentary. Because in the shadow of Prince Harry's tell-alls and Meghan's heartbreaking revelations, the idea of support within the royal family has felt increasingly hollow. Zara's words didn't heal that divide, but they did offer something unexpected. A soft bridge, a middle voice, neither defiant nor dismissive, just an attempt to anchor the narrative. In shared humanity, was she reaching out to Harry? Was she signaling to William and Charles? Or was she simply trying to calm the rising tide? It's impossible to say with certainty. But in a climate where silence equals suspicion, Zara's subtle admission felt monumental, and the public noticed. Commentators, viewers, even royal insiders began to revisit everything they thought they knew. Because if Zara was speaking up Zara, the one who never comments, never complicates, then surely something deeper must be unraveling. Her words didn't command attention. They invited reflection. And that's exactly why they resonated. There was no spin, no blame, no strategy, just a woman born into privilege, quietly recognizing that even the most gilded families are not immune to emotional storms. Her tone was calm, but the undertone was seismic. Because behind the layers of ceremony and duty, the core message rang clear. We're not fine, but we're still trying. But Zara didn't stop there. She brought the late Queen's memory into the conversation. With her grandmother gone, Zara invoked her legacy and hinted at a family adrift without her. In the same breath that acknowledged the royal family's internal struggles, Zara reached back to the one figure who had always held the center. An inspiration to all of us, she said, quietly but deliberately. A tribute to Queen Elizabeth II, soft on the surface, yet heavy with meaning. Because for decades, it was the Queen's unshakable presence that kept the crown and the family beneath it anchored. She was more than sovereign. She was the steadying hand, the silent mediator, the constant in a world that kept shifting. And now, she was gone. Zara's words landed at a moment when the family felt more fractured than ever before. Her grandmother's passing hadn't just left a ceremonial void, it had disrupted the emotional core of the monarchy. Under Queen Elizabeth, personal tensions never bubbled over in public. Disputes were resolved, or at least contained, behind the palace gates. She didn't just preserve tradition, she preserved unity. But without her, the boundaries blurred. The storm that had once been weathered in silence began leaking into the headlines, and the monarchy's old guard found itself struggling to hold the walls. Zara's subtle tribute did more than honor a beloved matriarch. It drew a line between what was and what is, and by doing so, it highlighted how much had changed. With the queen gone, the monarchy wasn't just losing its past, it was losing its peace. Her voice, once a quiet force in the background, had become an absence that echoed louder with each passing scandal. And those left behind, including her son, the king, and grandsons divided by bitterness, were now navigating without her compass. That's why Zara's timing felt so deliberate. Her comments didn't emerge during a quiet news cycle. They arrived amid chaos, amid questions about Charles's health, amid whispers of William's anger and Harry's distance, amid the absence of reconciliation and the presence of increasing public doubt. Zara didn't need to outline the crisis. She only needed to name the queen. The rest, the audience understood. And in doing so, Zara did something remarkable. She positioned herself not through power, not through title, but through tone, as the calm voice the monarchy desperately lacks. A bridge between what the institution once was and what it might still be. She didn't speak as a royal. She spoke as a granddaughter, a witness, a woman still tethered to a legacy that once held everything together. The question now is, was Zara simply speaking her truth, or quietly stepping into a role no one expected? In a royal world divided between silence and scandal, Zara may be the bridge the monarchy didn't know it needed. As the palace walls tremble under the weight of modern scrutiny, Zara Tindall has emerged not as a whistleblower, nor as a loyalist, but as something far more powerful, a middle voice. One grounded in dignity, clarity, and quiet conviction. She doesn't demand attention, yet when she speaks, the world listens. And perhaps that's why her words resonate so deeply. In a time when every royal statement seems to either ignite outrage or retreat into vagueness, Zara's tone strikes the rarest balance, measured, human, and real. To many, she now represents a form of grace the monarchy has been desperately missing. Not performative, not traditional, just calm. Her restraint isn't silence, it's composure. Her honesty doesn't attack, it invites reflection. In a family where extremes have become the new norm, where one side hides behind centuries-old protocol, and the other lays its wounds bare for millions to see, Zara's approach feels like a breath of something new. And it's not just the public that's taken notice. Media coverage, often polarized and ruthless, responded with surprising unity. Commentators praised her poise. Headlines didn't twist her message. Even critics struggled to assign her motive. Because for once, the words stood on their own, not as part of a PR campaign or a strategic leak, but as a sincere expression from someone who understands both worlds. She didn't defend the monarchy. She didn't tear it down. She held a mirror to it and did so without venom. That's what makes her so unique. Zara's position, untitled, yet deeply connected, gives her a freedom no other royal enjoys. She has nothing to prove, no crown to protect, and no royal stipend to justify. Her credibility doesn't rely on tradition or inheritance. It's built on consistency, integrity, and a refusal to play the game. And in this age of transparency, where audiences crave truth over theatrics, that kind of presence holds real power. Now, some are wondering, could Zara's example encourage others to adopt a similar approach? Could her calm candor offer a blueprint for healing a family and an institution on the brink? Because right now, the monarchy is standing at a fork in the road. One path leads deeper into division, secrets, and media-driven warfare. The other demands reconciliation, modernization, and emotional maturity. There's no clear direction, but voices like Zara's illuminate the way forward, not through noise, but through nuance. And that might be the very lifeline the crown didn't know it was waiting for. Not a savior, not a rebel, just someone willing to speak with empathy in a room full of echo chambers. Someone who reminds the world that between silence and spectacle lies the possibility of understanding. And as the silence starts to break, Zara Tindall's voice could be the one that changes everything. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.